Welcome back to the Boneyard podcast, everybody. This is your host, Jared Sheffield, along with my good friend,
Artemis Brower.
We're coming to you this week with episode 224.
224.
224. Artemis, it's Christmas.
It is. It is. The day before Christmas Eve.
It is Christmas
was the night before Christmas Eve.
How are we feeling about Christmas, man? Are we Christmas fans? We need to be more on Christmas. I feel like on this podcast, I feel like I'm terrible with it.
I love Christmas. I do. I do feel like Christmas is absolutely overrated, even though I love Christmas, but it is a little overrated. All right, we start Christmas celebrations literally before Thanksgiving. As soon as Halloween is over, we start Christmas. We just kind of bypass Thanksgiving, to be completely honest with you. But I do love Christmas. I love getting together with family. I love, spreading the gifts around. I get gifts. They get gifts. Everybody gets gifts. Everybody's happy. And just a good time, really getting together, having a few drinks, having a few laughs. So yeah, I love Christmas. We don't live in a state, unfortunately, used to live somewhere where it snows all the time on Christmas. Doesn't snow here a lot on Christmas. So would love to get a white Christmas in there at some point, but it's okay.
Yeah. Already. I feel like when you get older, Christmas loses its luster.
Because we're at a point now. I mean, you more so than me, but it's all about spending that dough, making sure people got gifts, Santa Claus, all that. So,
yeah, I'm excited for Santa to come. I'm excited for Santa to come to our house this year. Hope he brings me something nice. Maybe a military bowl trophy. I don't know.
That would be nice.
Come a couple days late. Artie, before we get into it, since we're talking Christmas, let me know, what is the best Christmas gift you've ever gotten?
Oh, that's easy. PlayStation 2, when it first came out, NCAA 04.
That's a good one.
PS2.
My dad's favorite story to tell is I had the original PlayStation, and then he got me a PlayStation 2 for Christmas, and I was like, no, I mean, I like my PS1. Like, I don't need a PS2.
Oh yeah, I had a PS1 too. I loved that thing. Loved it.
And I wish I still had my PlayStation 1.
I have both. I still had a PS1 and a PS2. In the archives, collecting dust, and they going nowhere.
I had both the fat PS2 and the slim PS2.
I still got the GameCubes collecting dust. I still got the 64 collecting dust.
I gave my GameCube away to somebody that they didn't have any game system, and I hate that I did that. Just like I sold my edition of NCAA 2013 for like $30, and then I looked on eBay and I saw that it was selling for like $600 on eBay. I was like, "What the?"
It's a collector item now.
I just sold it at a yard sale.
Yeah,
talk about some white trash. I sold a video game at a yard sale. No, all right. No, mine. I'm trying to think. I would say probably back. I was probably 10, 11 years old. I got a WrestleMania 3 like replica wrestling ring, like like the ones for your action figures.
Yeah.
But it had like the real canvas, the real turnbuckles that you could take off. Like it was.
I remember those. My cousins had
like like the ring poles were actually metal.
Yeah.
It was sturdy. It was good. That was probably one of my favorite gifts. That and I remember getting like a mongoose bike.
Classic.
The mongoose. Only the cool kids had the mongoose.
Everybody, I was about to say, if you know, the mongoose was classic.
The mongoose was that, and lastly, a DeMarini baseball bat. I remember wanting a DeMarini so badly, and my grandfather came through. He came through in the clutch. So
Love it.
Cool. All right, episode 24, Artie. Do you have a 24 for me? I've got a couple.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, and I just don't care that it's chalk. I'm henceforth and forever. There's only one 24. That's Kobe Bean Bryant. I'm not gonna ever go to another 24. There's no point in saying another person's name.
Is 24 the GOAT number?
That's 24. Kobe Bean Bryant, Mamba, one of the greatest to ever do it. I'm not gonna say another 24 outside of that.
I mean, 24 might be one of the GOAT numbers.
Absolutely.
I mean, you talk Kobe.
Across all sports.
I mean, you can talk guys like Dion, we're number 24. Jeff Gordon, 24.
Mm-hmm.
Like, maybe not the greatest of all time in their sports, in their respective sports, but all in all, like, pound for pound, the number 24 carries a lot of weight. It's taking down some big numbers. So those are a couple of. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say honorable mention, the year 2024, because we're about to say sayonara.
I was about to say this is probably the penultimate podcast of 2024. So before we say smell you never 2024. Yeah. 2024 has been a pretty good year for at least for the Pirates. It feels like it's been a decent year. It could be better.
Could be worse.
But it could. 2023 sucked.
It could be a lot worse.
2023 was rough. 2024 was much better than 2023. I'll say that. All right. What we got, Artie? First off, I want to give a shout out to the College Huddle. Tried to get a member podcast from the College Huddle on this week. It just timing didn't work out with the holidays. We're going to have Corey Smith on from Pack Pride here in a little bit. All right. Let's just get into it. ECU baseball, American Athletic Conference preseason poll came out last week, and ECU, by no surprise, was picked to finish first in the conference. All but two coaches, which one of them was Cliff Godwin, voted for the Pirates. I don't think you can vote for your own school.
Right.
My guess is the other school is Wichita State, seeing as I think they were the only other team that got first place votes. Maybe not. I don't know. I guess if you can't vote for your own school, I don't know. It's interesting. I don't know how you don't vote for ECU. Wichita State, I think, led the number of preseason all-conference players, which absolutely stunning that Dixon Williams was left off the preseason all-conference. Like,
fuel to the fire, baby. Let it feed you. Let it feed you.
This is
remember that slight.
This conference knows nothing about baseball. Baseball runs through. You can make a case for ECU to just run the table in preseason awards. And ECU didn't even have the most on the all conference team. Ethan Norby and Riley Johnson were named to the All American Conference team, and then, like I said, Dixon Williams was not seen as good enough to join them, according to the media members in across the American. I don't know. We don't get a vote. We don't vote, but our vote would have definitely had Dixon Williams on there because we know ball.
Big facts.
I don't know. We're only a month and a half away, Artie, from baseball. How are we feeling?
It's creeping. Look. Oh, it's like beating a dead horse, but we know what it is. All right. We are fully expecting, honestly, to just run rampant in the conference. Till the conference proves that they can be on our level, I expect ECU to I'm not going to say dog walk, but I expect ECU to do their thing in conference. And then really it's just about postseason. Do what you got to do in the regular season, and let's talk numbers in the postseason. Let's see what we do. As Jared takes a swig of the good stuff.
Let's get it started.
That's not apple cider, folks.
Let's get it started. I'm feeling festive, Artie. Let's get it started.
If it's in a mason jar, it is not apple cider.
Hey, I drink everything out of a mason jar. That's our glass of choice here in the Shappa household. Just a bunch of mason jars lying around, but this is the good stuff. But yeah, I don't know, Artie. Right now, I'm not focused on baseball. All I've thought about since, I don't know, December 3rd, 4th, whatever day it was that it came out. East Carolina playing NC State this weekend. So we'll get to it, but I don't know. I felt like it was a proper night to break it out.
Yeah, I agree.
It was a proper night to break out the good stuff. All right, let's talk transfer portal, and then we're going to talk NC State, East Carolina, and the Military Bowl. Some commitments coming through so far. Here's some commitments from some known visits. You got the defensive lineman Justin Benton out of Houston. He's got 4 years of eligibility left. That's a big one. He comes to East Carolina with former East Carolina Pirate and once again East Carolina Pirate, friend of the podcast, Tegan Wilk.
Yes, sir.
Look, when Tegan entered the transfer portal, he and I were texting, and I should have asked him earlier, man. Had I asked him probably a week before I did, he would have come on and announced it here. And I'm kicking myself. He asked me not to say anything. It wasn't exactly clear whether he was coming, but as soon as he entered the transfer portal, like he was telling me he wanted to be back here.
Yeah.
And that tells me a lot about a program. Is if a guy leaves and then decides, hey, I want to come back, things have changed. I'll throw that out there. Things have changed at East Carolina. Tegan Wilkes back. He's one of the good ones.
He is. Excited to have him back. He can come in and be someone who is an instant impact, instant playmaker kind of guy. So excited to have Tegan back.
Yeah. Friend of the podcast. He's fully healthy too. That's the good thing. He's gotten healthy over the last year and a half. He got his taste of playing P4 football. I mean, as much as you can in the Big 12. But yeah, Tegan Wilk is back. We'll get Tegan on. We'll get Tegan on for sure. All right, next up, wide receiver Jaquazi Petaway. This one might be the one I'm most excited about. This guy was a top 50 recruit in his class coming out of high school. Mm-hmm. He's been at Oklahoma, and now he's in the portal. And if there's one thing that Coach Roberts can do, it's he can find those guys that, hey, they were ballers in high school. They went P4. Maybe they didn't get the touches that they were hoping for. And he sells them on East Carolina and brings them in. I saw a stat earlier today. It was something like this year, ECU had 3 transfer wide receivers that combined for over 2,100 yards receiving, 17 touchdowns, and there was another stat in there I can't remember. And I was like, holy cow! Like, I feel like the wide receiver position is one of those positions where if you have a revolving door of wide receivers and from the portal, it's not a bad thing, right? Because these guys, when they're transferring in and looking at, especially when you're keeping your quarterback, right? these guys have been able to watch film on ECU and say, hey, I think I can play in that offense. Right? Last year was kind of a crapshoot. You didn't know who the quarterback was going to be. You bring in some transfer wide receivers. They ball out. Shout out Winston Wright Jr. and Anthony Smith.
Yes, sir.
You bring in Jaquazi Petaway, and you're like, okay, we're starting to fill some big time holes that were left by the subtractions of Chase Sowell, right? Now this guy, you want to talk about speed, which is what JDB talks about all the time is explosive plays and speed. It's going to be nearly impossible to cover these receivers because of how much speed ECU has. You're going to see him. You're going to see him probably line up in the slot alongside Yannick Smith on his side, and Caden Hauser is going to just be able to toss it down the field and drop bombs downfield. That's going to be absolutely electric.
Yeah, I mean, I would say my only concern is that he doesn't have a lot of real game experience in an offense where he got lost in translation in offense. It really was not that good. That's my only concern there. It's not like he's transferred from like an explosive, great Oklahoma offense.
Yeah,
Pretty
but
subpar, below average offense that he kind of wasn't able to ingratiate himself in. That's my only concern. I'm not saying
you could have said the same thing last year about Anthony Smith and Winston Wright.
I'm just saying the talent is there. I'm not saying the talent's not there. I'm not saying he can't come in and ball the hell out. He absolutely can.
I think that
we have the coaching that can bring that out of him. I think we do, but that's got to get coached out of him.
I think the biggest concern with him is and it got brought up in our group chat the size, right? And I'm not saying like his weight's fine. He's listed at 194, but he's listed as a 5'10" wide receiver, right? And we all know that at the D1 level, being a 5'10" receiver, like that's the low end, right?
Yeah. You got to be able to go up and get it at 5'10" if you're playing receiver.
But we've seen it at ECU before. These smaller guys, these shorter guys that can ball out, and if you have the hands, it doesn't matter. If you can get up there, if you have the vertical and you have the hands, it doesn't. You don't have to necessarily have that extra 3 inches. So I'm not worried about this guy. I believe he ran like 4 sub-10 100 meters like in high school. Like this guy was absolutely, I mean, he's absolutely speedy. So I'm excited to see what he does. It's always nice to bring in those guys that they have played in the P4, and I mean, this guy's coming from the SEC, right?
Yeah. I mean, Oklahoma's as big as it gets,
right? And then next up is ECU is bringing in a ton of offensive linemen right now. I think we're up to 3 or 4 offensive linemen that have committed to ECU. You got Cooper. I'm going to butcher this name. Josh, can you help me with this name? Turnvasky?
Tamavsky. I'm going to guess Tamavsky.
Tanavsky?
I have no clue.
Silent R?
Oh, I thought that was an M. That's an RN. I read that wrong. So maybe Turnavsky.
Turnavsky?
I have
Cooper.
No clue.
Out of Newberry College. And then you got Kyle Long coming in from Maryland. Another guy that you're bringing in from a visit is the cornerback out of Western Carolina, Jordy Lowry. Didn't we land another Western Carolina offensive lineman? I feel like I saw someone. Did he decommit already?
I'm pretty sure he went to Northwestern, or he went somewhere Big Ten. I'm pretty sure, but the guy that we were trying to bring in,
but he was committed and then decommitted because things changed.
Oklahoma. He's in
Oklahoma. It happens. They got money.
Yeah, they do.
I don't know. I'm feeling pretty good about where we're at from the transfer portal.
Yeah, I mean, we've got a lot of developmental pieces, but obviously the talent is there. And if with the right coaching, to me, when you have guys that are coming in that are not fully developed, that they don't come in as a ready-made product, then the coaching has to be there to bring out that product. So as long as the coaching is there, I have no problem. These guys are going to excel.
For sure. Lastly, Rion Rosabro. What a name. Lots of syllables in that name. From Towson, played 8-man football at John Paul II. He's back home in Greenville. 300. He was a 300-pound running back who ran for 2,000 yards twice in 8-man football. Could you imagine a 300-pound running back trying to run it down your throat?
I'm good. I'm going for the knees and ankles. Everything below the knees, bro. I'm cutting you at the knees.
It reminds me of in high school. I went to high school with Shy Tuttle, who plays for the Carolina Panthers now, and we would put him in at fullback. Any goal line situation, they just put Shy Tuttle in at fullback.
Why not? Who is tackling Shy Tuttle?
Nobody. Not a soul. You get it on the 1 yard line. No. Nobody.
I'm trying to go home that night. I'm not tackling Shy Tuttle. Stop playing.
Right. And then you bring in a long snapper, Tristan O'Brien from Indiana State. I feel like there's some other commitments that have been coming in, but those are the ones of note right now. I want to ask you, and it's always my concern. I feel like maybe the hardest position to recruit. Maybe I'm completely off base here, but I feel like one of the hardest positions to recruit from the transfer portal and bring in like real talent, quite possibly might be the offensive line. And so ECU adding a bunch of pieces there gives them room to play around and make adjustments with them. Yeah,
but a lot of good old linemen stay in place. They're not out here hitting the transfer portal, right? If you're good on the line, you're staying where you're at. No matter where you're at, you usually stay where you're at. So I mean, I would agree with that. I would absolutely agree with that.
Yeah, for sure. All right, what's next? Josh, you want to come in?
Sure.
So now that we're off with the transfer portal, we can start shifting our focus towards the bowl game. We got about 15 minutes before our guest comes on. What can a bowl do for you? There's a lot of stats that ECU athletes can hit with the final game of the season. Let's break it down. ECU needs 85 yards rushing to break 2,000 total yards rushing on the year.
Yes.
Okay.
So all rushing yards.
Okay.
In the whole team.
Doesn't matter who.
As long as we have 85. 85 yards total
rushing yards.
Sorry, I actually had to go to work today. I am tired.
That seems doable.
Seems doable, right? Seems doable.
I mean,
now out of those 85, if Rajay can get 66, he'll hit 1,000 yards for the season.
What was the number? What was the number I said for my bold prediction?
You said like 1,200. It was a little bit away from what this game could possibly do. And you had the quarterback throwing 2,400, I'm pretty sure, something like that, or 2,200.
So you're telling me I just need Caden Hauser and Rajay to go off?
Yeah, because Caden Hauser only needs 141 yards to hit 2,000 on the season.
I mean,
I need Caden Hauser to have a 641 yard day through the air, and then Rajay to have like 266 yards on the ground.
Now on the defensive side, these would be some crazy numbers. Omar Rogers, glad to see that he's not opting out. He only needs 4 tackles to reach 100 on the year. He just needs 4.
What an addition to ECU.
Well, I mean, based off those numbers, he's clearly averaged more than 4 tackles a game. So,
I mean, Omar Rogers.
Easily.
I feel like there's not a play that, like, I don't feel like we have a single play in a game on defense where Omar Rogers isn't involved.
Yeah,
he's all over the field.
Yeah, I would have to agree with that. Again, on defensive side, Elijah Morris can get 5 sacks on the season with just 1 sack in this game. If he can get CJ Bailey in the backfield for a sack, he'll have 5 sacks on the season.
That's an elusive quarterback, though. It's going to be hard to get him on the ground.
True.
Yeah,
True.
That's what gives me concern. That guy he's like a water bug out there. He can hop around wherever the hell he wants to.
Well, here's the thing. If Elijah can't get to him, Sam Donka can. A lanky Sam Donka who only needs 2 sacks to hit 5 on the season. How
many sacks are we averaging a game?
I want to say
I don't have the stats.
It's pretty low. It's like 2.
Yeah, I was about to say,
we need 2 to get 5.
2 or 2.5 as a team.
Okay.
And your D line is honestly pretty
thinned out.
Yeah, if I'm being honest,
and you are very correct. Yeah, I wouldn't disagree.
Yeah.
I could see Eli Morris like messing around, accidentally getting a 1. I don't think Sam Donka is getting 2.
No, but hey, crazy things have happened, right? Now,
sure.
Winston Wright can hit 600.
He's opted out though.
Yards. Oh yeah, I forgot he did.
Winston Wright's opted out, which I mean they may be pulling guys off the bleachers to run routes.
We're missing some dudes.
I don't know.
Yeah, that's so. I guess the biggest. I mean, I think who's going to be back there.
Wouldn't be surprised. Didn't Jamali Riddle return a little bit in the into the season?
Mm-hmm.
Wouldn't be surprised if we saw maybe like I could see maybe like a London Montgomery returning. Maybe not, but other than that, I don't know. You can try the Brock Spalding experiment again.
I think you put in TJ Engelman, freshman, hasn't really seen the field at running back yet, but I guess this is a great time to at least get him some touches, right?
Yeah, put. I don't even know who you put. Like just send the hands team out there every single time.
Yeah, that's
let them kick it through.
Yeah, that's the one thing about this game is that ECU has lost so many pieces, and NC State just hasn't. It's not even.
Which is honestly kind of surprising.
A little surprising.
Like I expect ECU to have a lot of turnover year over year. Just being in the American Athletic Conference, if you play and are a stud in the American, you can play.
Want to go somewhere else
at the next level. I get it. Yeah, I don't know who you put back there. You're not putting one of your top 2 receivers back there. You need them. You can't have them going out there and being a missile target. I don't know who you put back there.
Hey, look,
I like the Engelman. I could see. I think this is a place where like Jaquazi Petaway next year is going to probably be that guy, right? They're going to have him being exactly what they wanted Winston Wright to be, and Winston Wright did a phenomenal job. I mean, he was 10 yards away from what 600 yards of kickoff returns.
Yeah, 10 yards.
Wow.
10 yards away from 600 kickoff return yards.
Come on, Winston. You couldn't come back, take the opening kickoff, 15 yards, and say, "All right, I'm opting out now." No, I'm actually racking my brain on who could be back there. Engelman makes a lot of sense. But like I said, I could also see London Montgomery back there.
Yeah, to be honest with you, I think London gets. London gets the fourth quarter.
I think London gets for the. I think the first half is the Rajay Harris show, but I think after that, okay, Raj, you've been a phenomenal Pirate. It's time to hang it up. And then, then I think you transition to your lead back for next year. I don't know if it's a close game. You might have to keep Raj in.
If it's a close game, what do you mean?
What do you mean? What do you think I mean?
How's it going to be a close game?
In the second half?
Yeah.
What do you mean? How's it going to? If the score is close, Josh.
Yeah, but is that feasible? Is that possible?
Right. Josh is suggesting that this is not going to be a close game whatsoever.
Hey, anything's possible. I believe Josh.
Have you not heard yourself talk about how we don't have a defensive line?
Don't have nobody.
Yeah, I also heard that NC State was going to be in the college football playoff this year. So
you couldn't name a single player outside of next year's starting running back to return kickoffs. Like
I mean,
nor could I.
Is Jari Patterson playing?
Yes.
There you go. That's your guy. I mean, honestly, it's not a bad idea.
If they come out and play inspired, they might be able to hang with these boys. But it really just depends on the attitude of the team that's left in that locker room. Because it really could go south quickly.
I think it'll be interesting. I think it'll be an interesting game. All right. Let's see. Anything else before we throw it over? I guess our guest isn't in yet. How are we feeling, Josh? You're going to be up there. When are you heading out?
Saturday morning.
Saturday morning.
Yep.
You're flying? You're driving up?
I'm driving up. Yep.
See, I know when we talked last, you were talking about flying.
Yes.
Unfortunately, I will not be in attendance. I hate that, man. I was really looking forward to going. It doesn't make sense with the timing of the holidays to be able to go. But we'll have boots on the ground with Josh there. Are you driving up and driving back that same day?
No, I'm staying in Alexandria on the way back.
Home of many Pirates. There's a lot of people from ECU that are from that area. It's gonna.
No proof.
I'm excited for you, Josh. When ECU wins and Blake Harrell gets the Gatorade bath, I hope that you're in that bath just as much.
I do too.
For doubting. It sounds like you're doubting, dude.
There's no doubt. There's no doubt.
You're doubting.
There is no doubt.
You're doubting, brother.
I actually watched the entirety of the 1999 ECU versus NC State football game that was in Charlotte, and at the time was the most largely attended college football game in the state of North Carolina history. If that game, if that game goes how this game goes, I'll be happy. It's just I don't see where ECU gets its place from.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's going to have to be ECU's going to have to do it by explosive plays, and it's going to have to turn into like a shootout.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, had you not lost what you ended up losing on defense, I would have felt pretty comfortable going into the game. But losing as much as you did up front on defense, and then having, really only two receivers ready to go, I don't know. It's gonna be.
And as much as we say that we've lost on defense, we have, but also the defensive line that we do have that's going to be on the field for the majority of the game is an extremely experienced part of the defensive line. It's just the depth. It's just the depth. And if this game looks anything like how App State looked, where NC State just pays attention to the clock, doesn't break the huddle until under 15, and just doesn't sub out because they're taking the entire play clock. It's not going to be pretty. It's not going to be pretty.
For sure. We'll have to see. You'll be there, but
I'll be there.
All right, let's throw it over to our guest. Last time we do this year, we're going to throw it over to our guest covering NC State for Pack Pride. Welcome to the Boneyard podcast, Corey Smith. How's it going, my friend?
Doing well, guys. Doing well. How are y'all?
Good.
We're doing good. We're the final stretch right here before the holiday. Just grinding away.
I feel that, man. We actually do our podcast at Amedio's. We did it earlier tonight, and I was talking about how it was like hard to kind of separate from the last 48 hours of doing the first leg of Christmas stuff that we do, and then kind of getting back re-engaged to it. So yeah, it's an interesting time of the year to do all these things, man. For
sure. Yeah. And we were just talking we were planning on sending two of us up to the game this weekend, but we're ended up only sending one. The timing's just, I hate those post-Christmas bowls. Like, it's great to play in one, but it just makes it a nightmare to get up there if this isn't your full-time job, which for you, I'm sure you'll be there. So, but all right, Corey, NC State. Let's get into NC State a little bit. We're going to preview the teams, and then we'll talk a little bit more about the rivalry. NC State. I mean, all in all, and this is no slight to NC State. It seems like this year there was a lot of hype around this program coming into the year. I mean, we were talking top 15 team, top 20 team to start the season, and potential, like, looking at college football playoff contender. You come out, it doesn't go your way, or it doesn't go the Pac's way. Finish the season 6-6, squeak into a bowl game after beating Carolina. What's going on in Raleigh, and how's the fan base feeling about where the state of the Pac is?
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned all those things, obviously, before the season. I mean, I was on that train. I mean, they had me convinced, like, hey, this team is going to be that team. It's finally going to compete for an ACC championship. They'll, could knock the door down, potentially, this whole 12-team playoff. And a lot of that, it was based on two different things. First of all, the returning players that they had and the experience that they had coming in. The expectation before the season was Grayson McCall coming in, Jordan Waters at running back. Obviously, Grayson McCall coming at quarterback from Coastal Carolina. Legendary career that he had there, 3-time Sun Belt Player of the Year, all these different things. And then he comes in and he looks like a shell of himself early on. And obviously, then you have the injury, which cost him the rest of his football career. He's now retired from football. Then you have, Jordan Waters didn't really pan out as far as running back position was concerned. They pay all this money to have Kevin Concepcion come back. He didn't really live up to the billing this past year either. Obviously, he's entered the transfer portal now, and we don't know exactly where he's going to go. But, all these different factors it led to, NC State not living up to the expectations early on in the season. And then when you had the Grayson McCall injury, obviously, I don't think a lot of people thought that they were going to beat Tennessee or Clemson, but getting just, handled the way that they did was a really tough look. And then, like I said, the injury to Grayson McCall, a couple other costly injuries on the defensive side of the football, whether it was Caden Fordham or, had a couple guys like Brandon Cisse miss multiple games. Aiden White missed a game as well, 2 cornerbacks for NC State. And that kind of, set things back in several games that ended up leading to NC State losing games. And then, at the same time, the offense just wasn't all that great at times. The defense kind of figured things out midway through the season, and the offense didn't really ever catch up until, a couple games late in the season. You look back at the Stanford game, but Stanford's not good. And then, obviously the Carolina game, they kind of figured things out offensively there. But a lot of it was just kind of refiguring out what this team was and what this team would look like under CJ Bailey. And there's some, that kind of brings me to now. It's not, a great feeling because, again, this team is 6-6. They barely squeaked into a bowl game. You got to the Military Bowl when your expectation was to go to a college football playoff or to go to a big notable bowl after a potential 10-win season. But I think there is still some optimism for where this program could be heading. And a lot of that is because of knowing that CJ Bailey is going to be back, knowing that a lot of the defensive stars that you had on that side of the ball have said they're going to return. All the playmakers, Noah Rogers, Justin Jolie, which has been a one of the biggest players to say he's going to return already this season at the tight end position. And then a lot of offensive linemen that you feel pretty optimistic about as well. So there's some optimism, but I think they kind of want to see what this team is going to do against ECU before you're, really, really sold on what could be built this offseason too.
Gotcha. And, Corey, outside of, a lot of the players not kind of living up to the billing, want to ask about Dave Doeren, right? What does the fan base, the alumni, the university, do they still have faith in Dave Doeren to kind of put this program over the hump to really get you guys in contention for an ACC conference championship, to get you guys in the college football playoff? That's the next step in maturation for this program. Or do you feel like he's kind of hit the ceiling?
Yeah. The other part I didn't talk about too was the fact that the schedule was really, really good for NC State this past year too. I'm not skating past the question. I'm getting back to it in just a second. Mm-hmm. But that was also kind of the optimism for NC State was, hey, Dave hasn't really, knocked down that door, hasn't really been there, but the schedule really lines up. Outside of Tennessee and Clemson, every single one of these are winnable games for NC State. And they lost to Wake Forest at home. They lost to Duke at home. And that, I think, is kind of where it's crept into the minds of a lot of NC State fans. Like, even the ones that were, staunch, Dave supporters, like, you're not going to get me off this boat. Even some of them were like, all right, man, like, this was your year. We gave all the resources we possibly could to build this roster, to, bring in the veteran pieces you needed. And this happens. Some of it is out of his control. Again, injuries, you can't kind of think that Grayson McCall's career is going to end after 4 games at NC State. You don't know those things are going to happen. But it's kind of like all right, something's got to go off here where something's got to change. Either the way that you go out and recruit players or the coaching staff that you have to kind of build them. And I think, it's been more of a change in the way that they're going to go out and recruit players. They're working really hard to bring this roster back that they have currently right now. and then go out into the portal and get, offensive linemen and try to get defensive linemen once they know exactly who the defensive coordinator is going to be. There's some optimism that could be Freddie Autry-Lindsey, but, they don't know right now, so it's hard to recruit in the portal. That all brings me back to, again, Dave Doeren in this conversation. It's right now, it's kind of like you've got next year. I mean, and, he re-signed a 5-year contract this past year. But I really feel like right now, the way that it's kind of leaning is after a 6-6 season. This was, if they don't win this game, this is the third time under Dave Doeren, the entire time he's been in NC State, only the third time they will finish below 500. So that's not bad, but at the same time, if you're NC State and you're going into year 13, I believe it would be year 14 next year under Dave Doeren. So if you're looking at the bigger picture here, you've got to have something to show for it. And right now they have nothing to show for it other than multiple 9-win seasons and multiple 8-win seasons and being good enough to get you to a good bowl, but not being good enough to break through to get an ACC championship or even make it to an ACC championship, much less, trying to compete for getting to a college football playoff or, having a good enough program to even get double-digit wins, something NC State has only done once in the entire time that it's been a program.
Yeah, I feel like that's the thing that I don't get. Like over the last 3-4 years, Dave Doeren and his program has had, it feels like a lot of hype and has never really like lived up to it. That's from an outsider's perspective. That's just like once again, not even a slight. It's not even a bit on NC State. It really does feel like
it's true. Yeah,
they've underperformed majorly over the last 3 or 4 years. I mean, we always make the joke here at ECU, like, hey, y'all are doing less with more, right? And it feels like, I mean, it feels like there's a parallel right there with, we were expecting, same goes, this was the most talent ECU had ever had, and the schedule looked really nicely coming into the season. Yeah, you're coming off a 2-10 season. This is the year for Mike Houston to really like show out. He didn't do that. Obviously, he got the can. I was really surprised that Dave Doeren still had a job after going 6-6.
Well, and a big part of it too is you look at those past few seasons. You go back to, the first one, really the 2022 season, which was, ironically started with ECU. They go on the road to ECU and win because ECU misses a field goal late in that game. And that's the only reason why they ended up winning that game. They go on the rest of that season, again, very similar to this one, where you had a lot of expectations, and you can go back and say, hey, they lost Devin Leary after 4 games, and that's a big reason why, the season just imploded. Well, they weren't very good before that. I mean, there's a reason why, they weren't really competitive early on against ECU. They also weren't really competitive in the next 2 games, but they were able to find ways to win those. And then they went to Clemson and lost. And, that continues to be the theme here. But, that season, they also lost Devin Leary. They also lost, another quarterback as well in MJ Morris midway through that season. Then they end up, kind of winning the last couple games with Ben Finley. I think the thing that's been different between NC State and ECU is, and the way, the way that Dave Doeren has kind of done things has been, he's been just good enough to kind of get through these things. So, whereas the wheels fell off after losing to Charlotte, for ECU earlier this season, and yes, it was able to get back on track with another coach. For under Dave Doeren, he's always found ways to be able to kind of use that and bring back the season. Like last year, they were 4-3 at the break. They had a bye game or bye week, and then they win 5 straight games, and not just 5 straight games, but beat Miami, Clemson, and then close the season against UNC with a win. Beat Wake Forest on the road, which is something they just, like, for whatever reason, never do. And so they did all those things to bring back some optimism. I think the difference has been the fact that he's been able to do those types of things late in the season, But it's just those early season implosions cost you any opportunity to get to, a big game at the end of the season. And that's kind of the frustration now for NC State fans is when is good enough going to not be good enough, basically.
For sure. Yeah. And I wanted to maybe transition off the Dave Doran talk and talk about this NC State offense. I mean, right now, the only guy you really lost as far as skill position is Casey Concepcion. Tell me, I mean, obviously we've talked about Grayson McCall. I love that when you were talking about his resume, you didn't mention that he was 0-1 against East Carolina. I'm kidding.
You're good.
But no, you got CJ Bailey. That dude looks like a stud. And it good on NC State for being able to keep him from the transfer portal going into this offseason. What is it about this NC State offense that maybe seems like it's caught a little bit of a stride late in the season? I know you had the quarterback change, but due to injury. But like, what else is going on? What are they doing well?
Yeah, I mean, again, I think it's leaning on the playmakers that have been your guys. Hollywood Smothers early on in the season.
What a name.
Yeah, I know, love it. And he's a kid from Charlotte too. So it's not like he's from the West Coast or anything like that, but he's from Charlotte, went to Oklahoma initially, transfers back to NC State, wanted to come closer to home, and actually wanted to reunite with Casey Concepcion, his old high school teammate, and has already said he's going to stick with NC State despite the fact that Casey's headed elsewhere. But he's just, CJ Bailey's been a really good quarterback and been really smart for the most part outside of the game against Georgia Tech where he had 3 turnovers and also rushed for 3 touchdowns. That was just a weird game for him. But he's been really smart with the football for the most part. As long as he has good protection, he's had a couple fumbles where he's gotten hit from behind and fumbled the ball away there. But he's been really smart with the football and also a guy that can scramble, runs really well, had over 100 yards rushing the last 2 games of the season, and again, had those 3 rushing touchdowns against Georgia Tech. But he's more known as a pro-style quarterback. And then, like I said, Hollywood Smothers, a guy that the offense hasn't really gotten, that much more creative. It's just been the fact that guys like him, Justin Jolie, have just shown toughness. I mean, just, they're able to dump off the ball to Hollywood Smothers and he can run it for, 50 plus yards for a touchdown. And then you got Justin Jolie, who just a guy that at the point of, high points the ball really well. In the middle of the field, against linebackers, guys just trying to break him up for the ball. He'll make a big catch, come down with it, and then just immediately get back. And he's the guy that they can throw the ball to, 15, 20 yards down the field for, that first down. And he's been the safety valve for CJ Bailey, despite the fact that most of your tight end safety valves you think of like, all right, he's going to dump it off to him 5 yards down the field. No, he's the guy on like a go route, just kind of goes a little bit inside and he hits him on a deep ball. So he's been really big for this team. And then, Noah Rogers, Wesley Grimes, 2 guys on the outside. I would even put Dakari Collins, even though he's more of kind of like their run blocker as a wide receiver. Those 3 guys have really stepped up and been big time playmakers for this team as well. They lost KC, but there was kind of a feeling late in the season that this was going to happen anyways. And I think that kind of rubbed some guys the wrong way, that he was still, getting the ball a ton and that he was still kind of seen as the big time playmaker. And everybody would, on the broadcast was always talking about him and things along those lines. And not to say that, that again, I'm not trying to say like he just was, someone that was like rubbing the entire team the wrong way, but I just think now this gives everyone else that time to shine. They've been seen as those types of playmakers throughout their careers, and now they're going to get that opportunity. So I think, between that, the protection between Anthony Belt and Ja'Carius Peak on the right side and left side, and then Zeke Correll has been an elite center so far this season. All those factors have led to NC State being able to kind of hit reset a little bit throughout the last few weeks. And they had 2 bye weeks late in the season too, and we saw a different team each time they came out of those bye weeks. Now it's just, are they able to do that in the bowl game as well?
I guess and this is always I'm not trying to give NC State any material here, but it always seems like NC State, and this might be getting into some of the rivalry talk. Are they able? Are they going to be up for a bowl game? Is this something
that was honestly going to be my next question? How excited are they going to be to
like?
play this game?
Are they going to? We always hear about East Carolina's not our rival. Like we don't care about that doesn't matter. Oh, we're playing. It's just the military bowl. Like, are they gonna? Is NC State? Do they have the gumption to get up? And I'm not questioning it, but like, are they gonna get up? It's a true question across college football nowadays with the way bowl games are.
Yeah, I mean, I think they really will. And again, part of it is not wanting to finish below 500. Part of it is the fact that it is ECU and it's an in-state team. You don't want to give, first of all, you don't want to give ECU any reason for confidence throughout the offseason before you have to face them in the season opener next season, by the way. Like, you want to still have that kind of to hold over their heads, regardless. But also, it's the fact that, this is it would be one thing if it was, a veteran team that was frustrated, go at 6-6, whatever. Like, man, this, season didn't go our way. Let's just do this and get out. There's a lot of young players that still feel like they need to prove themselves. I mean, CJ Bailey, Hollywood Smothers, those guys are both. CJ Bailey's a true freshman. Hollywood Smothers, a guy that's a redshirt freshman. Several of these guys that I'm mentioning, Noah Rogers, a redshirt freshman. But then on the defensive side of the football, you got, a guy like Davin Vann. This is his last game that he's ever going to play. Davin Vann has done just a ton of things. Like, he actually played, he's been that good for NC State for that long that he was actually a starter in that game the last time around these two teams faced each other back in 2022.
Oh, I remember. Yeah,
and he wore number 45 back then. He's worn number 1 the last 2 years, and that's given to the biggest leader on the entire team. To kind of speak volumes again about who he is and what he represents for this team. So guys like him, Aiden White, going out and trying to finish their season the best way possible, finish their careers at NC State the best way possible. So you've got a mix of both of those things. And I think that leads to, NC State again, with the only loss being KC Concepcion. And they're looking at this, this ECU defense and going, all right, they've lost a whole lot more than we've lost. We feel pretty good about this. We need to go ahead and go out there and prove it. So,
yeah, I mean, speaking on what we've lost, honestly, we both sides of the ball, offensively, defensively, we've lost a lot going into this bowl game. Yeah. But what do you feel like NC State has to do, particularly in this game, if they're going to walk away with a victory on both sides of the football?
Yeah, again, I think it's the execution. It's not so much, the part of the issue for NC State's offense so far this season has been not scheming guys open enough. And whether or not they do that, again, like I said beforehand, a guy like Hollywood Smothers breaks tackles and has been elite at that so far this season. Justin Jolie, those types of guys have to perform at a high rate for this offense to really get going. And then on the defensive side of the football, I think it's going to come down to, again, guys not missing their run fits. I mean, that's been the biggest issue for NC State so far this season is if they miss run fits, guys can break off big runs and a lot of times end up scoring touchdowns. We saw it against Clemson. You saw it against Tennessee. Obviously, those games were a long time ago, but it's continued to happen. You look back at the end of the game against Georgia Tech. Yes, they're playing prevent defense a little bit there on the last drive, but you're allowing a quarterback to run all over you. If they allow that to happen with the ECU backfield, it could make for a long day and make for a very tight game throughout this one. So I think it's going to come down to those two things for NC State. Again, being able to execute deep down the field, but also, again, Hollywood Smothers being able to break some tackles. I also think, I talked about Jordan Waters not really kind of living up to the billing so far this season, but Jordan Waters has a chance to go out and kind of finish his career in a strong fashion too. He's done well against, group of 5 teams so far this season. So I could see him making an impact in this game as well, but we'll see just how big of an impact that is.
Yeah, and I want to switch it up a little bit. I mean, one of ECU's leading, if not he might be the leading receiver this year for East Carolina, Anthony Smith.
Yeah.
Obviously transferred in from NC State last year. Talk to me a little bit about him at ECU and his time at NC State. And I don't know, I always feel like it's an interesting thing, especially when guys play their former teams and the coaching staff that recruited them.
Yeah, it's funny because Anthony was a guy that for a very long time, I actually remember, when NC State got him as a commit, he was a late commit in the class. And a lot of the reason was because he was such a big track star and he was, an elite speed type of guy. That was what they were looking at in that class. And it was kind of like hey, we'll eventually get his hands there. He'll eventually be that type of guy and, and develop into a receiver. And, honestly, the biggest impact that he had at NC State for the most part was, getting so deep down the field that DBs had to interfere with him. It wasn't that he was making big time catches. That was that, hey, if he can get deep downfield, they're going to have to, take him down in order to be able to break up a big play. And, for the most part, it ends up in, 15-yard penalty instead of it being, what it would be at that time. So, but, for Anthony, I think the thing I've loved seeing for him is that confidence actually build because he's been a guy that's been getting opportunity. Last year, he got a few opportunities late in the season. And again, he dropped a couple, potentially big plays. He also, misread some plays and was off a little bit with, first MJ Morris. And then, when Brennan Armstrong came back out there, they never really seemed in sync. So he didn't really get enough opportunities. But watching him for ECU, again, like I said, I mean, just getting those opportunities and getting those chances for him to actually get out there on the field. And again, kind of building that relationship with Hauser, I think has been awesome to see for him. It'll be interesting to see what he does against NC State because, I don't think there was ever any bad blood because I think it was, Dave Doran was like, I'm going to give you as many opportunities as I could possibly give you. You just have to actually take them. I mean, he never really did at NC State. So seeing him against either, Brandon Cisse, a guy that he was his teammate last year, Aiden White, a guy that they faced off multiple times during practice. I'm interested to see, how they play against him going into this bowl game.
Yeah. I always, like I said, I always love seeing that, like that, those matchups when guys play their former team. And I mean, it's one thing in the bowl game, but next year doing it inside Carter Finley Stadium it's going to be fun to watch.
A little different. Yeah.
Ari, do you have a question?
Well, I mean, one of my last questions, I'm curious about the fan base. Do you think they travel? Do you think they're going to make it up to Annapolis, get up to the game, or are they just going to be watching it on television and say, screw the cold?
Yeah, the NC State fan base will travel for anything. I remember, actually, honestly, I mean, it was Chuck Amato's either last year or second to last year. And they played in what was formerly the Meineke Car Care Bowl in Charlotte. And like the stadium, as big as that stadium was, they played against USF. So USF's fan base didn't really travel very much. But I mean, I'd probably say 3/4 of the stadium was full, and it was about 90% NC State fans. And that was in a 6-6 team that was going nowhere. And, Chuck Amato lost his job the very next year, and the fan base still showed up in droves. So going to the Military Bowl, place that's 30,000 seats, there appears to be some weird weather, so I don't know exactly what it's going to look like on game day. But from everything I've heard, there's a lot of NC State fans that are planning on going. And, I do think the matchup against ECU has kind of sparked that a little bit too. The fact that you can go and watch NC State play against ECU as opposed to, hell, like say it was like freaking Temple or somebody like that. I know Temple was not nearly good enough to make a bowl game this year, but like I'm just throwing a name out there. Mm-hmm. If it was to go play Temple, it'd be like, all right, yeah, I mean, I'll make it up if I can. But to go see them play ECU changes things a little bit. And also the fact that it's in Maryland, it's not like it's in Florida or in Birmingham where you have to kind of figure out a little more travel plans. You can make that quick trip up. So I think this pans out really well for both teams. I mean, I think it's probably pretty split down the middle between the two teams because I think ECU fans are, NC State fans are going to travel regardless. I think they've shown that over the years. I think for ECU, it's like there's kind of that renewed sense of, all right, man, this team is hopefully getting back on track, and the program's hopefully getting back on track. And I think having NC State playing ECU and ECU playing NC State kind of brings both the fan bases really wanting to go see this game.
You know what we should do? We should just play this game in Keenan, and whoever wins just owns Carolina.
They get to plant the flag, though?
Yeah, we can both plant a flag at the 50-yard line.
There you go.
Now, that brings up another good question. I don't know. I haven't heard anything. Will the NC State student government bring the victory barrel? Any word on that? Do you know?
I don't know. Is this eligible for that?
I think so. I think the Peach Bowl's on there.
Okay.
It'd be a quick turnaround between a bowl game and starting next season. But
yeah, I'll have to find out. I don't know. I honestly haven't checked with that. Yeah,
I don't know anybody in NC State student government, but yeah, maybe you could do some of your investigative journalism work. And
there we go. Yeah, I've got enough to do with this whole JUCO thing going on, man. Like, and guys, potentially coming back now at this point. So that's been a fun one as well.
I'm sure.
But yeah.
I don't envy you or Stephen Igo's jobs.
Yeah. Steven works really hard. Shout out to him, by the way. Just
friend of the podcast.
Yeah, we talk to him all the time about when we need to touch on ECU and things along those lines, because obviously it's been plenty with football and basketball, or with baseball more so than anything over the last few years, and then women's soccer here recently too. So there's that, but yeah.
Yeah, I guess let me come out and ask then, because is ECU, we'll say from the fan base, is ECU seen as a rival?
I think so, but it's different.
I get it's different than Carolina. I get it.
Yeah, it's difficult to say because they don't play enough, and because it's not in the same, like, I think your more natural rivals are always seen as like, the teams that are in your conference. And it's not, I don't think it's ever meant to like put ECU down to say that it's not a rivalry, because
we would have been in the we would have been in the ACC, 20 years ago if it wasn't for NC State or Carolina. So,
well, and I think when the two teams face each other, there's more of a, like, you feel the rivalry.
Right. It's definitely bad blood.
But it's like, but I mean, in all honesty, like, when I'll say this, like, when Anthony Smith, when it was found out that he was going to ECU, it wasn't like a hate, you know what I mean? It was kind of like a, hey, that's opportunity. Like, that's, whereas I think it's, a player going from ECU to NC State, it's
AMAC's dead to me.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's like they're dead forever. Like, you can't come back on campus. Even though AMAC did go to an ECU football game earlier this year.
Yeah, so. No. He came to an ECU football game last year too and got booed. So no, I get it. It's different, and it's, but I also think that it depends on the situation for those guys.
Yeah,
right. Like AMAC, I mean, you're a starter. I'm glad he went off at NC State, but you're a starter at ECU. You're basically a 3-4 year starter at ECU, and then you go to NC State, and it's like, I mean, what's up with that? Like it's more of a in baseball, at least it's more of a lateral transition. At least it felt like. So, no, it's good to hear, because I mean, I like I said, I get the rivalry with Carolina, and I get that, but I mean, it's the same way with, now granted we're 0-2 against them right now, but it's the same way we feel about Charlotte. Charlotte's trying to make something a rivalry, and we're like, we don't go away. We don't care about you.
Well, I will say one thing. I will say is it is 100% a rivalry for Dave Doran, because you think back to some of the toughest losses he had early on in his career. I mean, two of the ECU losses that he had, and then the one that he had at it was the freaking against Montgomery. Like, I mean, they lose that game on the road, and that was, I mean, like, without the win against UNC at the end of that season, Dave Doran is probably done. Like, and we're talking about, 5-6 years into his tenure at NC State. He's
Right.
done if they don't win that game against UNC late in the season. And that all started because of week 2 against ECU and losing that game on the road. But, then you think back to, it wasn't this past game, but it was the previous game where they I think it was the end of like the 2021 season, where they had to add a game on at the end of the season. They beat ECU, it was 2018.
It was 2018. It was right after they added the game.
Yeah,
the ECU had a game canceled because Virginia Tech. Like we ended up canceling the Virginia Tech game.
Yeah,
that's a whole nother like fuck Virginia Tech. But then, and that's the thing. Like everybody's like, oh, like you start adding up the numbers. Like, oh yeah, we beat y'all 58. Y'all beat us 58-3 or whatever it was that game. Okay, yeah, we didn't have a head coach. We didn't have a starting quarterback. We didn't have a team.
But he came out after that game and he said, like, I forget the exact comment, but he was like, it just feels good to beat those guys. Like, because, every time he showed up at the grocery store and saw an ECU fan there, he's like, it was good to just break this thing off and say, and stop them from, and that to me,
we need that.
That to me tells you it's a rivalry to a coach. And, everybody used to say the same thing about UNC and, Roy Williams players always putting down NC State. But when you talk to Roy Williams, it meant something. Like it was like, we don't lose to those guys. You can't lose to those guys. And I think Dave Doran, even though the NC State fan base sometimes is like, hey, we don't care. It doesn't matter to us. Dave Doran's like, no, it matters. We are not going to lose to those guys because it's personal to me.
You're recruiting the same areas, especially in this state. I for one, and we've thrown this idea around, and I know it'll never happen, but I for one think that it would be phenomenal for the state if, once again, forget Charlotte even exists. They don't exist in this scenario.
They're trying to,
but they don't.
Yeah.
Maybe now they have a coach that will actually wear sleeves. Who knows? But to have every 2 years, it's a rotation of state, App State, Carolina, ECU. Like these 4 schools that have a lot of football history in this state. It does nothing but good for the state of North Carolina. I wish we would see more of that rather than seeing. I mean, Carolina schedule. I don't know, the Citadel every couple of years. Like
NC State broke off the App State games that they had scheduled, one going on the road, one being at home, and broke it off and replaced it with Virginia. And it's like that's the ACC. That's a team you're supposed to be playing in the ACC. But apparently the ACC came down and said we have to start scheduling tougher non-conference games, and
so you schedule Virginia.
Yeah, exactly. It's like App State is tougher. I would. There's several years, not this past year. App State was not very good this past year, but like, there's several years where App State or ECU or you could even see if you're not playing Duke or you're not playing Wake Forest, it means more to play a team inside the state of North Carolina. So
it does. I think there's a lot of good FBS programs in this state, and just to be completely like honest, in my opinion, and ECU's been down for a decade. Like we've had probably one of our worst stretches of football for a decade, and honestly, the last 30 years. And once we're back, I above my desk here, I've got a picture of the 70-41 game, ECU Carolina. Like those games are fun. Like bring back those schedules. It's good for the state. It's good for the teams. And especially with where we're going in college football, and we know strength of schedule matters now. And I get it, like going on the road to play in East Carolina team from an NC State perspective in front of 50,000 Pirates or let's say 47,000 ECU fans, 4,000 NC State fans. Like, give me like I think that's good, right? Like. That bring back college football that matters.
Yeah, and that prepares your team too. I mean, that's one big thing about it too. Is like as difficult as those scenarios have been, like UNC going into App State a couple years ago and having to, win what I think they scored like 80 touchdowns in the fourth quarter between the two of them with Drake May and whoever App State's quarterback was at the time. Like just them going back and forth and those types of things prepare you for what you're going to be, the types of atmospheres that you're going to be going into. And I think for a lot of instead you just kind of sell your soul and say, hey, we're going to play 7-8 games at home and then play 4 games on the road in conference play, and that's it. And that you kind of sell yourself short too. So you get a chance to be in a big game atmosphere to whoever that school is, whether it's App State or ECU or, again, like I said, I mean, even going to, if you go on the road to Wake Forest because you don't play them that year, like those types of things, those atmospheres matter to those teams in state of North Carolina. Going to Virginia, I mean, Virginia is just not a great atmosphere in the first place. And it's not, like those types of things don't mean as much to those out-of-state programs. So, yeah, I agree with you. And I think part of it, too, has been, just kind of this idea of, it doesn't help the ACC to go on the road and play a G5 program. Like, that's just kind of the way that the conference has viewed it. And
I mean, a G5 program basically won y'all's conference this year. I mean,
exactly.
That's the thing. Like,
yeah. Oh, I know. Don't get me wrong. I'm voicing what we're hearing, like what Dave Doran told everybody. Yeah.
I get it. Yeah. My thing is I'm like, yeah, like SMU won the American last year. Like, okay.
Yeah.
And they went out and basically ran the conference this year. Like that's like, I think that there's a little more parity than some of the middle tier ACC programs that like to talk the most.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think there's more parity there from the middle tier to the top tier of the American, and so that's why I'm like, hey, like it's really you could go play a middle of the road Big 12 team. Yeah, you could go to Houston. Guess what? Houston's not that great compared to a Tulane or even a Memphis in the American Athletic Conference, So
yeah,
I don't know. That's I hope we'll get past this phase of college football sometime very soon because college football needs it. They need.
That's not the only phase I hope we get past. God.
Yeah,
there's a lot that's going wrong about college football right now, and it's that's
solve the transfer portal. Let's solve scheduling. Like, I don't know how you do it. All right, Corey. Last question. I'm guessing you've probably been to Greenville quite a bit now.
For baseball, football, yeah, everything.
Have you been to Sup Dogs?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
The one is, how mad are you that there's not a Sup Dogs in Raleigh? And then the second question is when you do go to Sup Dogs, what's the order?
Oh God, it's actually been way too long since I've been to Sup Dogs. It was 2019, the baseball regional. That's how long it's been. I think I just got something standard there when I went last time, and I really need to actually go out and do something different. But yeah, and that's part of it too, was at that time there was already talk about the fact that there was going to be one in Raleigh. They were expanding to Raleigh. They were going to expand to Chapel Hill, and they only ended up doing one of them, and it wasn't Raleigh. So that was a little bit frustrating, but yeah, that's as far as bars are concerned, because that's really why we ended up going there, was because it was such a late night, and I think that was the game that got pushed to the next day, because they ended up having to delay it until the next day. So we just went there, hung out while we were waiting. So didn't really get the full experience because it was just a bunch of people trying to figure out are we going to go back and play baseball or not. But yeah, definitely need to get back there again. That was my only experience, unfortunately. So yeah, I did want one in Raleigh, and that was kind of the main reason why, was because I wanted to have a better experience than what we had that time around. So
for sure. Well, Corey, thank you for joining us on the Boneyard podcast.
Thanks.
Safe travels. Merry Christmas. Happy holidays. And we'll probably talk to you soon. And I guess maybe we'll talk a little baseball in a couple months, and then once again talk some football in just about 8 months from now.
Yes, sir. Well, Merry Christmas to you guys, and I appreciate you having me on.
Absolutely. Thanks, Corey.
Thanks,
All
Corey.
right, yeah, I'm going, guys.
Once again, that was Corey Smith from Pack Pride covering NC State athletics. Artie, look, I hate almost everything about NC State. That did seem like a good guy. So
It's a good interview.
good on him. Good. Hey, I don't know. You know how I can get, and I feel like we kept it pretty tame. So, all right, what we got next? I know Josh is off the podcast. He's heading into the holiday. I guess we got walk the plank. Do you have a walk the plank?
I don't have a walk the plank this week, brother. I do not.
Yeah, I don't either. I can't. I don't know. The slate of games
Christmas,
just
man.
here's if I had to say one thing, the college football talking heads, like they talked about SMU didn't belong. They talked about Indiana didn't belong. And then Tennessee goes out and gets blown out. And it's not that they didn't belong. Look at what Ohio State's doing to a SEC, a top tier SEC program. The narrative changes, right? And that would be my only thing. And it was every single one of them. Every single one of them.
Well, look, I think there's a certain agenda.
Oh yeah.
I think you're ignorant if you don't realize that. There's absolutely SEC bias. There's absolutely SEC agenda. Are they the best conference in football? Yes. It's not even that close. Yes, they're the best conference in football.
I don't know about this year.
That doesn't mean that just because they're the best conference in football, you can put in a 3 or 4 loss SEC team over an 11-1 Big Ten team, right? The regular season still has to matter for something. And you've been giving plenty of opportunity to go out there and win the games in front of you. Oregon's in because they won. Georgia's in because they won. Texas is in because they won. There's plenty of big boys in there, right? They won the games in front of them. You can't minimize or diminish the regular season. So I somewhat see what Kirk Herbstreit was saying when he came on there and talked, because yes, Indiana looked like they did not belong. They got outclassed. SMU got outclassed, right? But so did Tennessee. Tennessee went into the shoe and got outclassed, and that is an SEC quote unquote juggernaut. So it was just a crapshoot in the first round. You see what's gonna happen.
For sure. All right, Artie, let's get into gambling corner and then let's head into the Christmas break. First up, number 6, Penn State against Boise State, the number 3 seed in the Fiesta Bowl. We're just gonna do money line and over under. Who you got? I know talking beforehand, you were high on Penn State.
Yeah, look, I the way Penn State has played the last few weeks, especially against Oregon, they found something on offense, and it's something that they haven't really had all season. So like their offense is really starting to hum at the right time. I'm for the chaos. I didn't get no chaos in the first round. It was all the homers. I'm all for the chaos. I'd love to see Boise State pull an upset. I just don't see it. I think Penn State has circled what they need to circle, and that's Ashton Genty. If we can neutralize Ashton Genty, you're not going to stop them. But if you can neutralize them, you're going to win, and you're probably going to win by a lot. So, yeah, I've got Penn State in this.
For sure. And over under?
What's the over on this?
52 and a half.
Yeah, give me the over on that. I think these teams put up some points.
Yeah, I think out of the 6-3, 5-4 games, I think this is probably the closer of the games. If I had to pick right now, I really would love to see Boise State at least keep it close with Penn State, so I don't have to hear for the next 6 months, hey, we should get rid of the group of 5 team and out of the college football playoff.
Yeah, because honestly, yes, if Boise gets blown out by 30 or more, you're really
which is bullshit, because you're gonna have these schools like the Indianas and the SMUs of the world that also got blown out by 30 or more. And
they're gonna leave them out too. You're gonna see 3 and 4 loss Big Ten and SEC schools replace them.
Yeah, which is not good for college football. I'm gonna also take the 6 seed Penn State, and I'm gonna take the over. But I do think that this is a game that is closer than the following game.
Got it.
All right. Next up, number 5 Texas against Arizona State in the Peach Bowl. The over under is 51.5. I hate to go chalk, but yeah, I do. I think Texas is gonna have their way with Arizona State, and I'm gonna take the over.
Yeah, I Texas is a better team. Texas should win this game. I don't know, for some reason I think Arizona State's gonna have a little fight. I think they're gonna show a little fight. I like their coach. Their coach is gonna have them amped up, fired up. It's gonna be a us against the world mentality. And Texas is going to allow teams to stay in games with them. They've proven that time and time again. I think Texas wins. I'm gonna take the over, but I think Arizona State keeps it a little closer. Little close for comfort.
Sorry, I lost you there for a second. What you took? You took Texas.
I'm taking the over, and but I think Arizona State keeps it close.
Gotcha. Yeah. Wow. Two locks to start the week. All right, Artie. I think this game could have been the national championship game, and we've already seen it play out once this year, but this is going to probably be the most exciting game of the weekend. The 8 seed Ohio State against Oregon in the Rose Bowl. I guess when is the Rose Bowl with the new format? Is the Rose Bowl still on New Year's Day?
It's still New Year's Day. Yeah,
it is. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, we're gonna record before that again, anyways. Okay. Anyways, let's go ahead and give our picks. Ohio State, Oregon in the Rose Bowl, over under 54.5. What's gonna happen?
I mean, I'm not picking that team from the shoe. I can't do it. I'm going to pick Oregon. Oregon won the first time around. Look, I'm not going to lie to you. Ohio State looks incredible.
Yeah,
that is not the team that my boys beat in the last week of the regular season. They look incredible. And if they come out and play how they did against Tennessee, I think they could beat anybody in the country. But I think Oregon's going to have something for them. I think Gabriel's going to play great. I think Dan Lanning's going to have that defense coached up the right way. Give me Oregon in another classic between Ohio State, and give me the over.
Yeah. I so badly, just to be different, want to take Ohio State.
Do it.
I don't know. My thing, it's hard to beat a team twice.
It is hard to beat a very good team twice. Yeah,
exactly. Like it's always harder to beat a team twice, and to do it on the biggest stage. And I mean, Ohio State seems like they're finding their stride. Now, don't get me wrong. Oregon has been in stride since week 1.
Haven't lost a game.
They are the best team in the country by far. It's the Rose Bowl. I so badly want to take Ohio State here.
Such a fitting game for both these teams, though, because both these teams have Rose Bowl success and Rose Bowl history. It's a fitting. This is the right atmosphere for Oregon.
This is, and it's crazy because it's a conference game, right? Like,
yeah.
Give me. Is this the first upset we see?
I don't think Ohio State winning is an upset.
Yeah, but like by the ranking, it is.
Right. Yeah.
I so badly want to take Ohio State. All right, fuck it. I'm gonna take Ohio State just to be different. And I truly believe Ohio State could win this game. I think.
What version do you get, though? That's what version do you get?
That's the thing, and I think it is. I think it's going to be a shootout. I don't know. I think that this is a very tight game. I think this is a game that builds I think this is going to be the budding of one of the next great rivalries in college football. Like
The crazy thing is we're getting a national championship caliber game in the Rose Bowl, and it's a quarterfinal. We're not even talking about a semi. It's a quarterfinal.
right.
So that's going to be exciting.
Yeah. No, I'm taking Ohio State here. Just once again, I think these are the two best teams in the country. I really do. I think that these are the best two teams in the country, and they're going to play in the quarterfinal. And I think whoever wins this game very well wins the college football playoff national championship.
If they don't beat each other up too much in this one, absolutely.
And that's the only thing that gives me concern is, I mean, granted, Ohio State didn't really, I mean, it seemed like they didn't even break a sweat beating Indiana.
Yeah, no, they didn't. They really didn't.
So it seems like, okay, this is an opportunity. And you always worry, like, not, oh, is this team going to get up? You're going to get up. It's the Rose Bowl. It's the college football playoff. But you always worry when there's a little bit of, when there's honestly a longer, like, layoff.
Mm-hmm.
And that's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. Right? Like, does the layoff hurt any of these teams where they, I mean, I guess typically you would be playing this weekend anyways for the college football playoff, but like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, I do. And
compared to a team that played last week.
The format of the playoff does have to change, though. So I think there does need to be reseeding. And there's no rhyme or reason why Oregon, the number 1 overall seed, has to play Ohio State for their first game when Penn State got SMU, and then they get Boise State, and Oregon beat Penn State. Penn State should get to a semi. And I'm not saying rather easily, but they should get to the semis.
Do you want all the chaos, Artie? Give me a 16-team playoff. Hear me out. Hear me out, Artie. Stay with me for a second. Okay. Top 5 conference champions get the top 5 seeds.
Absolutely not.
Hear me out.
Absolutely not.
Hear me out, Artemis.
Go ahead.
The number 1 seed gets to pick who they play.
No.
In this scenario, there's no buys. In a 16-team playoff, there's no buys. So you pick who you want to play in the first round. And then after that round, then we reseed.
You see this thing 1 through 12 the way it should be, the way every other school.
No, because what's gonna and it wouldn't have happened this year, but what's gonna end up happening is every single year the group of 5 teams going to be the 12 seed. And honestly, this year Boise State was better than SMU and was better than Clemson.
Not necessarily, but it is going to change.
We were talking about already the talking heads. It's going to change.
You're never going to see Boise State as a 3 seed again, ever. You're never going to see Arizona State coming out the Big 12 as a 4 seed again. They're not going to let that happen. That's going to change.
Eventually they're just going to. I mean, why don't we just play a 12-team playoff between the top 6 teams in the SEC and top 6 teams in the Big 10?
Well, Boise State's not the 3rd best team in the country, which is
I didn't say they were. I didn't say they were, but they're also not the 12th team in the country.
I'm not saying they should be seeded 12. I'm just saying they should not be. They should get an automatic in for winning their conference. That doesn't mean they get an automatic.
I think
top 4 seed.
And I would say that, yeah. But the way it's set up is the top 4 conference champ. Winning your conference championship should mean something.
It does. You get into the playoff. That's what it means. You have a guaranteed in.
Yeah, but like if you are a top 10 team in the country and you win your conference championship, yes, you should get a bye. You won your conference championship.
Yeah, I don't.
We're not going to agree. We're not going to agree. Don't worry. I mean, your Maize and Blue boys are gonna be back there, and if they can figure it out. They got some studs coming in.
Hey, look, we got Bryce Underwood coming in. I'm not worried about Mason Blue.
Yeah.
We'll be all right.
We'll see about y'all.
We'll be all right.
Let's see y'all do it without knowing what your opponent's going to run.
Hey, look, if you ain't cheating, you ain't trying.
All right, second best game of the weekend. Notre Dame, Georgia in the Sugar Bowl. Thank God Georgia's not going into the Peach Bowl. I'm so glad of that. All right, tell me, Artie, does Notre Dame have a fighting chance at all to knock off the Dogs?
Yeah, well, look, Georgia's without Carson back, and
that's true.
I think that does play a huge role into this because you're throwing in.
Honestly, with that, they should have just left Georgia. They can retroactively take Georgia out and put in East Carolina.
Right, do what they did to Florida State. I guess you don't have as good of a team because you're starting quarterbacks out.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, put in like an Ole Miss or Alabama.
No, look, Georgia's still Georgia, and they're still going to play well. And I even think their backup quarterback can still, because he came into the SEC championship game and helped that team beat Texas.
Right.
So I do believe Georgia is going to show up in this game. However, Notre Dame, they've looked apart ever since that Northern Illinois loss. They've looked apart. They've been blowing teams out. They beat the brakes off Indiana. It was a 10-point win, but it was never close. That game was never close. It was never entertaining. It was never in doubt. I don't know. I think a steamrolling Notre Dame. They just and I know they're going to disappoint me. That's what Notre Dame always disappoints. You pick Notre Dame, they look great, and then they disappoint you. Usually against an SEC team. So this would be the matchup where they disappoint. But I for some reason I think Notre Dame has the edge.
So you like Notre Dame? I
like Notre Dame in a close one because Georgia's not laying down for nobody. But I like Notre Dame in a close one.
And the over-under is 44.5. How are we feeling on that?
I mean, I could see like a 24-20 game. I really could.
Sweating out.
Right there at the under. Give me the 44.5 is kind of low. Give me the over. Give me the over.
Give you the over.
I think it barely hits the over.
It's so hard to bet against Georgia.
It is.
It's so hard to bet against Georgia. I mean, Georgia coached by Kirby Smart. It's just hard.
And Georgia's going to be a dog in this game. So Kirby Smart's got everything he needs.
Oh yeah. To put it into perspective, Josh took Notre Dame and took the under. I think Georgia wins this game. That somehow, some way, that they win it and get Carson Beck a shot at it to end the season, because he'll be back for the semis, right?
Well, I don't know. I thought he was exploring surgery options. I thought his season was over.
No, I think he. Last time I saw something, I thought he was out like 3 weeks.
I could be wrong.
I think surgery is on the table after the season, but I think
if he can get back,
I think if he could get back to basically, it's not necessarily requiring. And I'm no doctor, Artie. Believe it or not, I'm not a doctor. From my understanding, it's his elbow, right? It's almost like the surgery or the injury that like requires Tommy John, but it's not necessarily as bad.
Because it got hyperextended.
Right. So I said Georgia. I'm talking myself into Notre Dame, but I'm gonna stick with Georgia. I got to be a little bit different. I don't know. This just feels like a game Notre Dame would lose. All right. And I'm also taking the over on, I think 44.5 is pretty low.
It's low. Yeah, it's just low.
All right. ECU, NC State. NC State's a 6.5 point favorite. The over under is 58.5. Already, this is the game of the week. Like, don't sleep on the Military Bowl in Annapolis, Maryland.
This could be a barn burner. This could be a good one.
This is it's gonna be a fun game. Like, look, I want to say this before anybody freaks out. If East Carolina loses this game by 30, this game has nothing to do with the game on Labor Day weekend next year. Nothing. It has nothing to do with it.
Labor Day weekend, 2025. It's going to be a good weekend.
It is. I unfortunately won't be at that game either. I'm kidding, Artie. I'm kidding. I'm messing with you. That's already decided to get married Labor Day weekend, 2025. So,
but not on a Saturday, folks. We're doing this on a Sunday.
Yeah, so I'm like, why can't I go to the game? Like, you don't really need me.
Yeah.
Like,
hey, look, if you want to face Ashley's wrath, that's on you, brother.
Look, I can handle Ashley.
You think so?
Artie, I handle Savannah. I can handle Ashley.
Okay.
No, ECU, NC State. It's fun. Look, I am not. I feel like the line is a lot closer than it should be. I feel like it should probably be a 10-point spread right now. 9.5. ECU underdog. Crazier things have happened, Artie. But give me your thoughts on this game.
Yeah, I mean, look, obviously my head and my heart are at two different places. Head is telling me I don't know how up our guys are going to be. We talked to Corey about, how up is State going to be. How up are we going to be? Like, are we going to be excited to play this game? Are we going to have the pieces to
I guarantee you give me Rajay Harris going in and talking.
I'm not worried about Raj. I'm talking about
you give me Rajay Harris going into that locker room for the last 3 weeks and saying, this is my last shot.
Yeah.
I want this so badly, a leader on this team. And then you take him and you take some of these other guys on defense that have been around for so long. You take some of the offensive linemen that were here a couple years ago. You take all that. That's going to be big. I'm not worried about ECU getting up. Not to mention Blake Harrell, who's been here he was here the last time ECU NC State played.
Yeah.
Like, he knows what it means. Like, they've been talking to – they know what it means to this fan base. And just like NC State, you got a lot of guys playing for their job next year because ECU's bringing in guys from the transfer portal. And if you're not in the transfer portal now and you're trying to be the guy next year, you're balling out. Not to mention Anthony Smith. I mean, I don't think there's any bad blood there. Anthony Smith wants to beat NC State.
Of course. He wants to ball out against his former team. Yeah.
And Caden Hauser can put it together and say, hey, like, y'all just gotten a taste this second half of the year. I'm about to ball out in the bowl game and then go into spring camp.
I will say an Anthony Smith revenge game is exactly what we need. We need an Anthony Smith, about 150 plus receiving yards.
I was going to say 162.
Yeah, type it. We need that kind of revenge game from Anthony Smith.
162 and 2 touchdowns.
Just to let him know. That to me, then I'm like, okay, yeah, ECU has a legitimate chance.
All right, 162 and 2 touchdowns from him. I think Yannick goes like, I want to say maybe 85.
I was about 85 to 90 sounds about right for you.
Yeah, 85 and maybe a touchdown. I'm not gonna say 2 touchdowns. And then I think Raj puts up. I think Raj can run the rock.
2 or 3 of those are like big explosive plays, though.
Yeah, I think Raj puts up 120. The only thing about that is if he doesn't play the second half. If he plays the second half in this game, like ECU has.
Why would he not play the second half?
Because it's the passing of the torch.
Yeah, but to me, if this is his last game, he goes out on his terms, and he plays a full game if he wants to.
That's fine. That's fine.
If it's a close game, you have to keep Raj in. So
yeah, I mean, if it's close, you got to. But if it's not close, and hey, that's the end of it. Like you're not going to put him in. He's going to be like, all right, I need to go get ready for pro day.
Yeah, that's what you're saying.
So,
but as far as we pick for this game, 6.5. I first off, I'm gonna take the over. I think 58.5. 58.5 is high, but I think there's gonna be points scored. So I'm gonna take the over in this game. And yes, my head is telling me NC State. They return a lot of guys, and I feel like this could snowball very ugly for ECU if we don't, start fast. We got to start fast in this game and kind of keep it going. But I can't. I mean, I can't choose NC State. I'm going with my heart, man. We're going ECU. Obviously to cover, obviously to win. This is going to be a close game. If ECU wins, it's going to have to be a bit of a shootout, and it's going to have to obviously be close because I don't think we blow out NC State. I don't think we're capable with this current roster of blowing out NC State. But give me ECU. Give me the over. Military Bowl Saturday. Let's get it. This is not what my head thinks, but I got to go Mark.
Yeah, and there's no such thing as a moral victory already, especially in a rivalry. Let me read off Josh's first. Josh took NC State to win and cover, and he took the over. I think we all agree that there's going to be points scored here. Now, from ECU side, I don't know who's going to do it. I think if it's going to be done, it's going to have to come from Anthony Smith and Yannick Smith.
Yep.
I think ECU covers 6.5. I think that it's going to be I think it's gonna be a closer game than maybe a lot of us think. I think that rivalry games are close, and as much as NC State doesn't want this to be a rivalry, it is a rivalry. Just like App State, ECU, and ECU Charlotte or Charlotte UNC, all those to some extent are a rivalry. Man, I really want to take ECU here. Like, I'm with you. I think ECU covers, but I do think that if I were putting money on this game, I would take NC State.
Like, I think we'd all three put money on
NC State money line, ECU to cover.
Yeah,
I think it is probably the best bet.
Ooh.
As much as it pains me to say,
that's all right.
Like
I'm on the ECU train.
I hate that. I hate doing this. I can't. East Carolina to win. I just can't. Like, don't listen to me for gambling advice. I'm telling you, I'm terrible. I'm a terrible gambler. I've basically given it up at this point. ECU to win. Fuck it. Fuck State. That's all I got.
That's a mic drop if I've ever heard one, ladies and gentlemen. I ain't got nothing else for you. Happy holidays, y'all. Enjoy these festive times. Get with family. Be safe. Safe travels. And until next week, y'all. Wash your hands, wash your butts. Deuce.
Just make sure y'all subscribe and go damn Pirates.